Yo, what is going on, guys? Jeff back here bringing you more Project Zailas. We are in the Z right now, continuing our major interior overhaul. We got the exterior of the car looking on point, besides the paint, of course. And you know we can't just leave the interior alone. We got to come inside the car as well and get this thing looking fly on the inside. You know we got to have the Z looking fire inside and out. So let's continue overhauling this interior here. Now in the last video I had just installed my brand new head unit in here, which replaced the old factory Bose head unit. That thing had to go. We got a brand new Pioneer AVH-X 490BS. This thing is awesome. I'm loving it so far. Just looks a lot better too. So now that that's taken care of, we can move on to some other components in here. Namely, the steering wheel in this video is what we're going to be covering. Not only the steering wheel, but also the NRG short hub and quick release system that is going to be replacing this whole factory steering wheel assembly right here. So I'm going to be showing you guys the process from start to finish on removing this. And I'm also going to throw in a couple of little tidbits that are oftentimes glazed over or not explained very well in a lot of tutorials on how to do this, or step-by-steps I should say. Namely, I'm going to try to maintain my cruise controls here. Once I take this wheel off, I'm going to try to detach this whole thing right here and maintain the connection through to the electronics inside, and then reattach the cruise control to my new short hub. That way I can still have cruise control for those long drives. Unfortunately, one of the sacrifices that you have to make when you're changing out your stock steering wheel is some of the features on here you're going to lose, especially on a loaded car like mine. This is a Grand Touring Z. It came with every available option that these Zs came with at the time of manufacture, and one of those things was radio control on the steering wheel right here. We are going to be losing that, but that's okay. There is the option to maintain that with a steering control interface that you can wire directly into your head unit harness, but I do not have that, and I'm not too worried about it because my head unit came with its own remote control. Plus, it's not very far away from my hand. If I want to change or do any settings on my head unit, I can just do that with my hand. It's not a big deal. So we are going to be nixing the radio control here on the steering wheel. So let's go ahead and get started with this procedure. It's not a very difficult thing to do at all, but you definitely need to make sure that you have the right tools. If you don't have the right tools, this is going to turn into a headache real fast. So first I'm going to show you the components that you're going to need to do this. At least for my setup, I'm going to show you my new steering wheel, the new short hub, and the new quick release. And I'll go over everything that I bought in accessory to that, anything that you might need, and then I will show you the tools that it requires to get this thing off and get the new one on. So here in the passenger seat we have basically everything that we're going to be doing here today. We have the new steering wheel, of course, which is probably the most important item here. This is a Sparco L777, a high quality wheel, really nicely built, very high quality. Sparco is an extremely well-known company in the automotive tuning scene, and you cannot go wrong with any of their products, whether it's a steering wheel like this or a seat or anything else that Sparco makes. They spare no expense in their quality of their products, which is definitely one of the reasons at least that I chose Sparco for my steering wheel. The other reason, of course, being that I just love the design of this wheel here. It's very high quality, real leather wrapped. It's got the stripe down the center there that I really wanted in a new steering wheel, and just the overall design and the depth of the wheel itself is exactly what I was going for. I thought it matched the theme of my Z very well, both in color and in design. So it was really a no-brainer for me. When I was shopping for steering wheels, I came across this one fairly early in my search, and I ended my search as soon as I found this one. I knew that was going to be the one for me. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you buy a steering wheel is almost in every case, they will not include the bolts that you need to bolt your steering wheel to your hub. You will need to buy those yourself. And the cool thing about that is that you now have the option of buying bolts in any different color or style that you want. These are kind of particular recesses here that are in the steering wheel itself. They are sunken type bolts, or sunken type screws, if you want to call it that. So that's what naturally fits in there, but that's not to say that you couldn't get a more standard type of non-sunken hardware in there if that was your only option. But make sure you get something that will securely fasten your steering wheel to the hub without any risk of that thing becoming dislodged or coming off. In my case, I went ahead and bought a set of 6 gold high quality bolts, steering wheel bolts. These are specifically made for steering wheels, so I went ahead with the gold color scheme. I'll dump them out here so you can see. Very nice quality, very nice. They fit right into the steering wheel recesses perfectly just like that, and that's going to look absolutely awesome. Just with that slight gold accent, it's going to match the gold trim that I have on the exterior of my car. Now my car's color theme is kind of a deep carbon silver, a matte black, and a gold, so this is going to perfectly match with the trim and the lug nuts that I have on my wheels right now. Alright, so besides the steering wheel, we now have our hub and quick release system. This is by NRG. This is a very well-known company. Many cars are running NRG in some capacity or another, mostly for their quick release systems. They also make harness bars, harnesses, and sway bars and things like that. Very well-known company and high quality product for sure. So I went ahead and went with NRG for my short hub and quick release. So this is the short hub here. This is what's going to replace the base here just under the steering wheel. It's not a very complex thing. It's basically just a hunk of metal that you're going to bolt the base of your quick release system to, and it has a little recess in here that you're going to use to run your wires through right here, and it has a nice little bit of space under here so that your wires don't get too tangled in there as you're turning your steering wheel. So that's the base component that you're going to need. But the real meat and potatoes of this system is the quick release, and that's this guy right here. This is also by NRG. They're very well known for their quick release systems, both because of how nice they look and flashy they look and all the different colors that they offer, but also because of their really nice build quality. Can't really go wrong with this. They're very highly reviewed, and you see these in a lot of cars with aftermarket steering wheels. It's a relatively simple device in functionality. This bottom portion right here will bolt directly to your short hub, and the upper portion here bolts to the back of your new steering wheel. The wires here are to maintain your horn functionality. It has one live wire and one ground wire. They also include a metal bracket that will serve as a new ground that you will sandwich between this portion and your hub right there for a ground. And then when you want to release your steering wheel, you'll pull up on this gold ring portion right here. Now there are different versions of this quick release. They have anything from a version 1 all the way up to a version 3. This is the version 2.5. The difference between the versions are mostly cosmetic. There's a few mechanical differences in there that I'm not 100% certain on, so I won't get into that too much. But for the most part, it's cosmetic and ease of use differences between the different versions. The version 1 does not have these kind of paddle looking release levers, I like to call them. It's just the cylinder, just the ring itself, that you have to press this little metallic knob down and then pull up on the ring to release the steering wheel. And the versions that are subsequent to that will have a little extra ridge to grab onto. The version 2.5 has just this extra little 3/4 inch rib on both sides to give you some finger leverage, and the version 3 has an even more exaggerated, almost paddle shifter type of thing that comes way out here. It's a very extreme type of look, and I just thought that that was a little bit too much for what I was going for. It doesn't look bad necessarily, it just was too much for what I wanted. But I did want a little extra leverage, so I went with the in-between. That's the version 2.5. I think it looks great. As I had mentioned, these come in a variety of different colors. You can get anything from just plain silver to gold like I have here, neochrome, gunmetal, anything you can think of, red, green. NRG is really well known for their different color schemes that they can provide their products in, so can't go wrong there. If you can't find a color that matches the theme of your car, there's something wrong for sure. So I will show you exactly the functionality, how this thing works as we get it installed, but this is the main meat and potatoes, like I said, of the quick release system here. NRG also provides the hardware that you need to mount the short hub to the base here at the steering column, so that's very nice. And this is the aforementioned grounding bracket that they provide. They give you 2 of them. I don't think you need both, but they do give you 2 of them in here. They also give you this Allen key here, which is to secure your hardware there. Very nice. Unlike the steering wheel, it does come with the hardware, so that's nice. Also in the box you're going to find this little bag of electronic goodies. And there is 2 resistors in here. These are airbag resistors. You're going to use these to slot into your existing airbag connections to cancel out the airbag light that you will naturally get as you disconnect the airbag from the system. And then this guy here is going to be your new steering wheel electronics connection, which is basically your horn and any other electronics that you may have running into your controller that you may want. In my case, my cruise control, I'm going to probably have to do a little bit of a modification to this little connector right here. I think I may have to add a couple of pins from the existing connector that's in the steering column right now into this one to go ahead and maintain my steering wheel cruise control controls. But for the most part, this is just horn power. If you're not running cruise control, then you're just going to replace the factory connector that's in there with this guy, and you will have full horn functionality. So once you have your steering wheel, the hardware for the steering wheel, the short hub, and the quick release, you should have all of the major components that you need to do this install. Now let's go over the tools that you're going to need to do this. Alright, so I have everything here that I'm going to be using. Now keep in mind that I'm doing this on a 350Z, so this may differ if you have a different kind of car. I can't really say for sure what you're going to need, if there's any difference from this if you have a different car, but this is on a 350Z that we're going to be doing the install on today. So what I have here is a universal ratchet, or not a ratchet, but a universal driver here with a T30 security Torx bit here on the end. And you need to make sure that you have a T30 security bit and not just a standard T30 Torx. There is a difference between the two. If you look right on the top there, you'll see a little dimple right in the middle. It's a little recess, and that's how you can tell if it's a security bit. If it's not a security bit, this will just be flat on the top like a standard driver, and you will not be able to use that. You need a security bit, and that is to release the two airbag bolts that are on either side of the steering column here. There's one there and one there, as you can see. I will show you those as we get started on the install. So you will need that. It would also probably benefit you to have a flathead screwdriver here, and you're not going to be using this too much, but it may help you in disconnecting the airbag connectors that you're going to find after you take the airbag out of the center of the steering wheel. And then you will definitely need a 19 socket here and a long either a torque wrench like this or a breaker bar to get off the center bolt that is holding the steering wheel on. Now for most cars, that thing has never been removed, so you definitely need the leverage to be able to pull that thing off because it's going to be extremely tight on there. You also need to be able to tighten it back on there once you have the new steering assembly back on, so make sure you have something with some leverage. And that's pretty much all you're going to need. You are going to be using that little Allen key that NRG provides to fasten on your hardware, and I believe that very same Allen key will work with the steering wheel bolts as well. So just this stuff and that little Allen key and you should be good. If for some reason that Allen key does not fit in the steering wheel bolts, then just make sure you have some extra Allen keys on hand. I have this little handy dandy pocket Allen key thing here, so if I don't have the right size, then yeah, something's up with that, but I should be good to go. Once you have all of that ready, you can go ahead and begin the installation. Alright, so once you're ready to start the process on the installation, the first and foremost thing that you're going to want to do is disconnect the negative battery terminal. Make sure that that thing is fully disconnected and not throwing power into the car at all. If you still have power into the car once you do this, as soon as you remove those Torx bits on the side of the steering wheel here, your horn is going to start blaring non-stop, and there's no way you're going to be able to shut that off. The other risk that you run with power is when you're removing this airbag, there could be some kind of accidental sensor that could be tripped or something, and you do not want that airbag to be going off on you as you're trying to remove this. So the safe bet is just to go ahead and remove the negative battery terminal, make sure there is no power flowing through the car at all. Pump the brakes a couple of times after you remove that to make sure there's no remaining power in the system at all, and then you can go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the two security Torx bolts that are in there. As I had mentioned, there's one here, and on the exact opposite side there's one right there. There's little plastic caps right there that are extremely simple to remove. You can just get a fingernail or that flathead screwdriver in there and just pop those off just like that, and you can see right there that's what they're going to look like right there. Now you can see that little nub right in the center there. That's why you need the security bit and not the standard, because there's no way you're going to get a standard bit in there. It's got to fit around that little nub perfectly. So these are security bolts, and they're only used to secure very important items such as airbags in automotive applications. So you're not going to use that bit very often, but you will need one in this case. So we're going to go ahead and remove both of those. There's one on each side. Alright, so here's what one of those torque security bits is going to look like. It was a bit of a challenge to get that thing out of there. It was really tight in there, and you can see why. It's got some blue thread lock on there. That's the medium strength thread lock. So these are typically not meant to come out at all, so you may need to put a little effort into getting these guys out, but that's what they look like. Okay, so with both of the torque security bolts removed, we can now go ahead and pull the airbag itself straight out of the steering wheel. Now you want to do this very slowly and carefully because there are still connections attached to the back of the airbag, and this is of course an explosive device, so you don't want it blowing up on you and just if you're handling it very loosely. So just pull that thing out. It should come out without too much fuss at all, and just very carefully take a look behind there and find the connectors. There should be two. In my application at least there's two. As far as I know, there are some that only have a single connector, but in most cases you will see two, a yellow and an orange. You need to disconnect those two connectors right there, and those little black pieces on the top are the clamps that are clamping those down. This is where you're going to use your flathead screwdriver to go ahead and pop those black clamps up, and then you should be able to remove them fairly easily. Just be very careful, don't be too rough with this thing as I said, and you should be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect those two connections right there. Alright, so as you should hopefully be able to see, I've gone ahead and gotten my flathead screwdriver under there and just popped those little black caps up, and we should now be able to easily remove these two connectors right here. I'm just going to get a little bit of leverage with my flathead screwdriver and lift that up just like that. Very simple, just take your time with it. You don't need to rush at all, and it should come right out for you. And there we have the airbag removed from the steering wheel, so go ahead and carefully place that out of the way. Alright, so with the airbag removed, you are left with something that looks like this right here. We of course have our two connectors that we just disconnected from the airbag. These are going to be connected to the base of the steering column here. They're going to remain, they're not going to come off with the steering wheel, so you will need to deal with these. And you will see on the bottom of these, you will have two little holes. You can see them right there and right there. There's a set on each one of these. This is where you're going to use those two airbag resistors. You're just going to plug those resistors, one into this connector and one into this connector right here. I will show you that as we get to that point. That's going to cancel out your airbag light and keep your car from understanding that there is no longer an airbag in the steering wheel. This connector back here, hopefully you can see that. This is the pre-existing electronics connector that powers your horn and all of this stuff up in here if you have that. And that will need to be replaced as well. We're going to be taking that one out and replacing it with the new one that NRG provided in the package. So we're going to be taking all of this connector off right here and removing this ground right here and replacing it with the brand new connector. Like I said, I do want to maintain my cruise control controls, and that is being powered by a couple of the pins that are in here, so I am going to need to swap over a couple of those pins into the new NRG connector, and that way I should be able to maintain my cruise control. And then I will run the wire from the cruise control, all of this stuff back here, I'll run the wire under the hub and we should be good to go. I'll just attach this to my new short hub and should be golden. So this guy right in the center is your 19mm main bolt that's holding the steering wheel on to the column here. We're going to need to go ahead and take that guy off at this point. So let's go ahead and loosen up this bolt right here. Alright, so I went ahead and locked the wheel and took off the center nut here. It was actually very simple to do with the amount of leverage that I have here with the torque wrench. Took that guy off of there. Now at this point you just want to go ahead and nudge the steering wheel on the sides, just kind of pound on it a little bit to dislodge it. It shouldn't take too much at all, and you should be able to feel that the steering wheel is loose and able to come off of there. Now don't just go yanking that sucker off of there right away. You will first need to go ahead and disconnect a couple of things. This little guy right here, it's a very simple little connector. It's just attached to a metal bracket right here on the side. So just pull that guy out and then go ahead and get this clip out, the gray clip that's in there, that little connector right there. We're going to go ahead and use our flathead screwdriver again to go ahead and push in the little lock mechanism, and then we'll pull that guy right out, and then the steering wheel should be clear to go ahead and pull off. Just pull it off very slowly. There we go. Now slowly we're going to go ahead and remove the wheel. Go ahead and fish those two wires, those two airbag wires right through there, and you'll be left with this here. Okay, all this previous connector assembly and all that will still be in there. Alright, so I have this steering wheel fully removed now. I'm going to go ahead and take this time to pull out my cruise control, the harness and everything, and the pins that I'm going to need to salvage my cruise control. So I'm going to turn the wheel upside down, and there's going to be 3 screws. You want to get one right there, and then on the front side there's going to be another one. It's kind of hard to find, but it's like right down here at the base. It's another little Phillips screw right in there. It looks like you're not going to be able to get to it, but this is plastic, so you can get like a Phillips screwdriver in there. Damn it, I got like hella sirens going off. Get a Phillips screwdriver down in there, and you should be able to get that in and get that out. Once you have all 3 of those Phillips screws out, you can go ahead and remove this black plastic piece that covers the back of it. So once you have the back plastic off, that's going to expose your harness up here and the back of your control brackets right here. There's going to be another Phillips screw right there and one right there. Go ahead and take those out, and that's going to release the actual controls. Should look just like that. So back on the front, I'm going to use that same T30 Torx bit to go ahead and remove this bolt right here. That's the one that's closest to the connector. And that will allow us enough space to go ahead and pull the connector through the metal bracket. So you can kind of lift that up. You might have to bend it a little bit, lift that up and pull the connector out. Alright, so I got the harness completely free at this point. This is what you're going for. We no longer need this at all. I'm just going to screw the little screws back in there so that I don't lose them. Put that black plastic back on there, and then we will start deconstructing that harness. Alright, so here we have the old harness here still attached to the control modules here, or the control switches I should say, and here we have the new NRG power clip that they give you for your horn. And what we're going to end up doing is, if you look on the back of this and then you look at the back of this, they are extremely similar. The only difference is that the NRG one has far less going on there. It only has one black wire in this 3rd slot from the left there, whereas this one has an entire array of wires. And what we need to do is we need to find the wires that are running through the cruise control switches. That's this one here. So I'm going to follow that wire until I have access to the wires themselves, and I can see here that I have a red, a black, a pink, and a yellow wire. Okay, so we're going to follow that up to the connector here, and we're going to find those wires. The red, there's the red, the yellow, there's the pink, and the black is right there underneath. What we need to do is we need to remove those pins from this connector and place those pins into the new connector, and then we will run the harness underneath the hub here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and deconstruct this little connector here. It should be very simple. There's usually a little lock. That's this guy right here, this little bracket. We're going to remove that with a flathead screwdriver, and you should be able to just pull those particular wires right out of there, and they will plug right into the same slots on this one. You're going to remove the same little lock right there, open this up, and plug those little wires into the exact positions that they are in this one into the new plug. We want the red one in the leftmost slot, the black one in the second to the left slot, the yellow one is going to be in the 4th slot, and the pink one is going to be in the very last slot right there. And if you take a look at this one, that's going to work just fine because all of those slots are open on the new connection. So let's go ahead and swap those wires over onto the new connector. Alright, so in order to remove these wires from the actual clip, you got to look in through the front part right here, and you got to put a real small little tool. I'm using a pick like this with an end that I've kind of filed down so it's not too sharp. You got to stick it in the hole, so looking from it this way with this little locking mechanism on the bottom, and there's going to be a little plastic stopper that's in there. You got to put it in there and press that little stopper down to release the wire. It sounds a little complicated, but it's actually very, very simple. It's not complicated at all. Let me try and demonstrate here. I'll try and hold the camera. So I'm going to take this pink wire out right here. I'm going to put it in the bottom hole. So the locking mechanism is on the bottom. In the bottom hole, and push down on the base right down in there, and that should release the wire. So you can see it comes right out of there. So that's how you take these out. Just take out all the ones that you need, and then you're going to just slot them right back in to the new one in the exact same position. So make sure you don't forget where you're taking them out from. Alright guys, so here we have our cruise control harness fully complete. I have spliced those pre-existing wires into the new connector. This is the new NRG one, into the exact same slots. As you can see, here's the old one, and I went ahead and terminated the pink and yellow wires that were hooked into the pink and yellow wires here. I don't know exactly what the pink and yellow do, but they were attached to the cruise control, so I just went ahead and maintained those, but I went ahead and terminated the ends that were spliced into the radio controls. So we no longer need this. There's the old connector there, and we have everything we need from that. We have salvaged it. So here we have our cruise control. We're just going to go ahead and mount that to the new short hub, and then we'll just clip this in as usual into that connector right there, and we should have cruise control. So the rest of the installation is going to be just pretty straightforward and pretty standard. Let's go ahead and get the short hub on there, and then we'll fit the steering wheel and the quick release. Okay, so we have our base that we're going to be fixing our new short hub to right here. So I've got my short hub here ready to go, and you can see there is going to be a little dot right there. My camera focuses on that little dot right there that's going to line up to the little line that's on the spline. Now you guys are probably not going to be able to see that because my camera is tripping, or maybe you can. So there's a little line right there on the spline. You want to match that up to this white nodule right here and to the little dot right there. Okay, so you're going to be fitting this thing right over there, lining up as closely as possible with the spline, the dot, and this white nodule. Now if you take a look at the back of the short hub here, you can see this little notch that's cut out of the metal there. That little notch is perfectly shaped to fit right over this little white nub right there. It's a little rubber nub with a little hard piece of plastic in it, so you don't want to put too much force on that when you're trying to push this thing on there, because you definitely don't want that thing to break off, because that's the lever that controls the left and right action on your steering wheel here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to fish all of this wiring. We're going to fish the airbag wires through this little hole right here. We're also going to go ahead and plug in our cruise control harness, cruise control and horn harness. We're going to plug that right back into the spot it was before, and then we're going to run that wire behind the hub. We're just going to let it hang down for right now. So I'll go ahead and plug that in right now. Okay, just like that. And you can see I went ahead and wrapped those wires up so they're not just loose and hanging all over the place in there. I made it nice and clean so that it's a clean install all around. Then I'm just going to go ahead and let this dangle for right now, but we do need this wire right here because we need to fish all three of these through our short hub. So let's go ahead and fit that on. Again, it's like a puzzle. You got to make sure that this little nodule is lined up with the line on the spline, and then fit your short hub over so that all of the lines line up. Alright, so after you get your hub nice and tight in position, everything should be lining up and that little white nodule should be fitted into that slot. We still have this wire here for our cruise control, which is tucked behind here. It's not being crimped. There's just enough room to allow for that wire to sit back there. We're going to be tucking this around and mounting it to the side of our new hub just like that. We can use Velcro or glue or whatever you want to do, but this wire is just going to tuck around just like that, and that will work just fine. But first, let's go ahead and tighten this nut back on that we took off of here. It's that 19mm nut. We got to make sure that's on there real tight. And then after that, we will make our connections, and we will attach the bottom portion of the quick release. So I'm just going to finger tight that on for right now. I'll grab my torque wrench, and I'm going to tighten that on there real good. All right, so with the hub now firmly secured and that nut tightened down about as tight as it can go there, I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity to put in my airbag resistors at this time. And like I said, you just put them in those two little holes right there, and they look just like this. So we're going to take these two little sharp ends right there and plug one into each one of these connectors. There's 2 little holes in each one. We're just going to fit them in the little holes. There's 4 total holes, 2 on each one of the airbag clips. They just go right in. They don't lock into place or anything, so make sure they're firmly in place and not going anywhere. You're then just going to go ahead and take this whole assembly right here and just carefully wire it around inside here, out of the way. Make sure your horn wire is still exposed. Get that stuff out of the way. There is enough room in here. At first it might look like there's not enough room to get all this in there, but there is. Okay, just make sure your resistors don't come out of the little slots as you're doing this. Okay, so that should be good. Then we're going to go ahead and take this black wire right here, and we're going to fish one of these grounding metal plates right over, fish that black wire through it, and then we're going to take the base of our quick release, that's this guy. I just detached this from the upper portion of the unit, and these are your horn connections right here in the back. So yellow is going to go, the yellow male connector is going to plug right here into the black wire that is exposed, and then the black wire here is going to go on the metal tab for your grounding ring. See that? That'll go right over there just like that. Make sure it's pushed on there as much as you can. Okay, then just make sure your ring is flush and you have the bolt holes exposed. Tuck the remaining wires in there as much as you can, and then once again line everything up. There's a dot on this base plate right here. It's going to line up with the same dot. Look for the NRG logo on the top. That will indicate where that top dot is, where the line is at. And once you have everything all lined up, we're going to go ahead and use the supplied hardware to go ahead and bolt that in. I'm just going to finger tighten them for the moment, just so I have it in place. So get all 6 of them in and tighten it down. Use the classic star pattern, of course. It works the best. Got no focus right now, but you guys get the idea. So I'm going to tighten all these down with the star pattern. Alright, so we have all of our bolts tightened down, and that's what you should be left with. Of course, you have your cruise control right here coming out from the side. Everything is secured and connected. It does not feel like that's going to come off or wobble at all. So we have the upper body of the quick release. We're just going to go ahead and put that right over the top and rotate it, applying pressure until it slips right on there. It only goes on one way, so you don't really have to worry too much about it. You should see the NRG logos lined up. This is the top of the hub here, and here's the top part of the upper body of the quick release. So that's how we know we're nice and solid. No play in there. Everything's looking great. I can pull it back off of there. Maybe not with one hand. Let me pull that off. Press the little safety button and it comes right off of there, no problem. And then I can just twist it right back on and it will go right into place. This little button here is the safety button. You can remove that if you want. You're just going to take the little Allen key that they give you and unscrew that, and just hold your finger over it because it is spring loaded. So just hold your finger on it and unscrew that until the spring comes out, and you can pull that out so that you don't have to worry about the safety button. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine in. Not that big of a deal for me to just press that little button down, but if for some reason you just don't want that and you just want to pull it back to remove the wheel, you can remove that. Of course, remove that at your own risk. It is there for a very important reason, for your own safety. I think it goes without saying that you really don't want your steering wheel coming off while you're driving or in the middle of a turn or anything like that. So in my opinion, it's best just to leave that thing on there and take the extra second it takes to push that thing down and then release your steering wheel. So now comes probably the funnest part of the entire install, and that is mounting our new steering wheel onto the top of the quick release hub here. This is where we are going to really start to see the interior of the car come alive. A brand new steering wheel really goes a long way to enhance the look of the interior and also the feel too, the steering feel. It's going to be so much better with this new steering wheel, so I couldn't be more excited. We're also going to be hooking up the horn here so we maintain horn functionality, but one thing I did notice on mine is that these two wires here are not going to be fully compatible with the horn that Sparco sent me with my wheel. As you can see here on the bottom of the horn, there's 2 male connectors there and only 1 female connector here. This is another male connector here. So what I'm going to need to do is pick up a female connector and attach that to this ground wire right here so that I can fully affix my horn. Now I can put my horn on there and just make the 1 connection to this prong right here, and then I can just tape this one to this prong right there and my horn will work just fine as long as it's grounded. And I'll probably do that just temporarily until I get an actual connector. I don't really have time to go out and buy one of those right now, so I will have horn functionality, but unfortunately my horn did not come with a female connector there. You should have that extra female connector. It'll either come on this thing or it will be on the back of your horn anyways. But I will have horn functionality here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount my steering wheel on there. I'm going to use that gold hardware that I got. Should look absolutely sick. And then we'll go ahead and test the horn out. We'll put the female to male yellow wire right there to the back of that prong in the middle. And then we will touch the black ground connector to the other prong right there just to test and make sure it works. And then I'm just going to tape it on just so I have horn functionality for the time being. So let's go ahead and get the steering wheel mounted. Alright guys, so now we have our steering wheel mounted on there. It is nice and solid, doesn't have any play in it, so we know we're good to go safety wise. And that gold hardware just looks absolutely amazing in there. I love how it turned out. This is exactly what I was going for. You have the black, the silver, the gunmetal. You got the kind of the gunmetal stripe through the center and the gold hardware and the gold quick release. Just everything coming together. That is looking fantastic. Alright, so we're now going to move on to the horn situation. So here's the horn that Sparco sent me with my steering wheel, as I showed you just a second ago. And it does come with a little decal that you can throw right over the top like this once you have it on there and centered. So don't worry about that. Even though the black, just the black looks cool too, they do give you the little decal in case you were wondering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hook this yellow wire right here into this center prong. You can tell it's the center one because it has a little lead that goes right into the center of the horn. Yellow is going to go to that, and then I'm just going to touch the black wire to this one right here just to make sure I have horn functionality. That will let me know that all the connections that we made earlier are correct, and I will just have to go and get one of those little female connectors to actually put that in. But for now, if it works, I'm just going to throw a piece of electrical tape over that and make sure that the connection is secure, and then I will get this horn in there. Now, one thing to note is a lot of times when you get these horns, they will not fit in there because they are too snug. They have these little black ridges right here on the edges of it, as you can see. These guys, there's one there, one there, one there, and one there. There's 4 of them. And they are too big to be able to fit your horn in there and into the quick release. So what you actually need to do is shave those down, and don't shave them down too much, but just shave them down just enough so that you get a nice snug fit in there. And that should be just right. You can use a razor blade to kind of trim them down a little bit, but what I'm going to do is just take my Dremel with my little sanding bit and I'm going to shave them down very carefully. But for now, let's make our horn connection and make sure that we have horn functionality in the first place. Alright, so I'm going to take the yellow wire, as I said, and I'm going to attach it to the center prong. Right, just like that. And then I'm going to touch the black connector to the other prong here, that's our ground. I'm just going to touch it, lay it over the top, and then I'm going to try the horn. There it is. Hopefully you guys can hear that. The horn does work. If I remove this black thing and it's not touching the prong, I have no horn. Okay, so the ground connection has to be made, and I don't have the connector to join those two right there. Your horn should come with one, or the quick release kit will come with it. I don't know, but for some reason I didn't get the right connection, so I can't actually officially join those two together, but like I said, I'm just going to use a piece of tape, do it a little ghetto for right now until I get out to the store and buy an actual connector for that. Piece of tape right now will work just fine to maintain that connection until I actually get that thing connected. Alright guys, so there you have it. We have our wheel and our horn fixed into place. I just shaved down those little nubs that I showed you on the underside of the horn, and then I pushed it in there real good so it's nice and snug, that's not coming out. I could still get a fingernail or a flathead screwdriver back there and get it out, which I more than likely will, to get my connector in there to make the final connections with the horn. But it does work, as you can hear. I also stuck my little Sparco emblem on there and it's looking fly. I'm loving the way that this whole entire assembly here came together. I'm also going to end up getting a new shift boot and probably an e-brake boot as well that will follow this theme kind of over into the center of the interior as well. So this thing is looking absolutely fly. So if you did not bother to maintain your cruise control from your stock wheel, then at this point you are done. You have your new steering wheel, you have your quick release, and you are finished. You are sitting pretty. However, I did maintain my cruise control. As you can see, it's still hanging here, and so I'm going to actually go ahead and fix this onto the side of my hub now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it somewhere about right there, and this will spin with the wheel and the hub. It doesn't attach to the actual steering column here. It's actually attached to the hub, so you don't have to worry about the wiring or anything getting caught in there. This will all spin together as one unit with the wheel. So you can see I've already fixed a piece of Velcro with an adhesive back to the side of the hub. It's just about 3 inches of industrial strength Velcro. It's about a 10-pound strength Velcro there. And now on the underside of the control interface here, you can see I've taken the wiring and I just kind of crisscrossed it around these two pegs right here, and then I used a zip tie to put a little lock over the top, and then I will end up putting the screws that were in there originally back in there with a washer to make sure that that zip tie doesn't come up off of there, and that way the wiring will be locked into place. That way you don't have a bunch of ugly wiring down here hanging out. It'll be nice and tucked out of the way, and there's still enough slack for me to get it up here onto the side of the steering column just like that. So what I could probably do is just put some of the other end of the Velcro on the top portion and the bottom portion right here and fix that on there, and it would probably stay pretty good. But what I actually decided I wanted to do was fill this little cavity right here that's on the underside of the interface, and then put a piece of Velcro over the top of it. That way it would be more secure on there as opposed to just the top and the bottom on there. So what I did is I actually used the piece of foam that comes in the quick release box. When you order this from NRG, this will be in the box and the quick release will be sitting in it. I just cut the top portion of that off right there, and then I cut off about this much and shaved it down to this shape right here. And that's going to fit perfectly. If I hold this up here, it's going to fit perfectly inside that little cavity, just like that. You can see how it fills up that little cavity right there. So I'm going to hot glue this piece of foam into place right there. I'm going to use a high temp glue gun and high temp glue to glue that in there so it's real nice and sturdy. And then I'm going to go ahead and place the Velcro on this. It sticks really hard to this foam. I already tested that out. So I'm going to stick the other side of the Velcro to that, and then I'm going to just put this whole entire assembly right up into place on the side of the hub right there, just like that. It's an example of using what you got. You know, I was looking around for what I could use to fill that little cavity right there so I had more surface space for my Velcro, and I just happened to see this laying on the floor of my car, and I said, hey, there it is, perfect. So it's a perfect example of using what you got, get creative with it. So I'm going to hot glue this into place, put my Velcro over the surface area here, Velcro that down, and we will be solid. We will be all done. Alright, so I finished doing my hot gluing of the foam piece. You can see it in there right there. Then I went ahead and cut out a piece of the Velcro backing out of the right shape right there, and then I just laid it right over, as you can see. So now we are ready to go ahead and fix that to the side of our hub. Alright guys, and there you have it. We have the cruise controls now firmly attached to the hub there, and we have our wheel fully installed. As you can see, it moves together with this entire unit. It does not rub on the column in the back. The one benefit about the Velcro is if you do need to adjust it at all, you can just pull that right off of there, make any adjustments. If you want to mount it a little bit lower, you can mount it a little lower, a little higher, whatever you want to do. And then once it's in the place that you want, you just stick that thing on there and you are good to go. It's not going to bother you at all. So that is it, guys. That is the install of the NRG short hub quick release and the brand new Sparco L777 steering wheel on Zailas. This is just one part of the many interior upgrades that we are going through right now. Next up, we are going to be doing the bride seat install. I've got the bride side mount rails and the brand new bride seat that you guys are going to be getting the first look at, and I'll show you the full install from start to finish on that as well. Going to be doing a couple other things with the interior as well. I'm not done yet. Like I said, going to be doing a new shift boot, a new e-brake boot and all that. So stay tuned. This interior and this car overall is going to continue to get better and better. Thank you so much, guys, for following this build. I really appreciate all of your support, for subscribing, and just for continuing to watch and support the build. Thank you guys so much. Of course, if you guys have any questions at all or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I love communicating with you guys. It helps me feel connected to the community, and I just really like it. You guys are so awesome. I appreciate you guys more than you know. So feel free to communicate with me. Don't be shy. I'm totally a chill guy, so I don't mind the communication at all. So hit me up with any questions about the quick release install, the steering wheel install, the horn, the cruise control situation. Any of that is cool. I will help you guys out as much as I can, so don't be shy. All right, guys, as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace out and God bless.